You're listening to Grace, Geltman, and Weld on the Hammer Factor. Take it away, boys.
Welcome to Hammer Factor, episode 46. I want to introduce my co-host for this show, professional kayaker, Dim Shits charter member, and Hood River local, Dave Fusilli. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much, John and
Yep.
John.
Yep. Thanks for coming on. Also, I'd like to introduce Whitewater legend, four-time upstream national champion and co-owner of Immersion Research, John Weld.
Three dudes, two names. Should be the name of the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh,
We make
man.
Little icon.
Yeah. Well, we got a packed show, but before I get into the show, we have to. The season is kicking off. We've got our T-shirts just came in. 8 weeks is happening. All the show sponsors are getting on board, and we're going to start out with this episode of the Hammer Factor is brought to you by CKS Main Street in Buena Vista, Colorado. The premier paddling shop in the Arkansas Valley. CKS will once again be hosting Paddle Fest Memorial Day weekend, May 25th through the 28th. This weekend-long event is the best way to kick off the paddling season in the Arkansas Valley. We have a massive selection of used gear at our swap, a week-long sale with 15% off everything in the store, demos of our newest 2018 boats, a fleet of reps from all our major vendors on the floor to answer questions. You can even find Weld on the floor to discuss the finer points of paddle length and offset.
Or I'd be glad to bust on Grace with you.
Yeah. We also have a host of amazing events open to the public, such as the freestyle competition, third annual numbers race. In addition to the event, there is also a selection of clinics to help you improve everything from your most basic kayaking skills to advanced river running and freestyle techniques. Each night there is an offering of live music as well as local food and beverage vendors to celebrate the after paddle in style. The website is live, so you can see the schedule and events at ckspaddlefest.com. Mark your calendars for May 25th through the 28th in beautiful BV, Colorado. It's funny that Fred sent this to me, and he's got like all these pronunciations because my grammar is so bad. But big props to CKS. Thank you for the sponsorship. You guys are both going to be there, right?
I think so. I mean, Fusilli, could you name a more iconic paddle sports store than CKS?
I really can. I remember getting CKS, their little magazine pamphlets at my parents' house when I was younger. I remember looking through it before I was even really paddling a lot. So that name's been in my mind for a long, long time, and I've been to that event a lot.
And it's a killer festival up there in BV, and man, I've had some wild nights there. I think I've had some wild nights there with you, Fusilli.
Yeah, for sure. I raft guided in Buena Vista for several years before I started with Piranha, and the last time I was at Paddle Fest I think was like 2 years ago. But I used to always go to the rope. Remember the rope party at the rope? Great.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Have you been in there recently?
I haven't been there in probably 3 years.
When I went back in there, it was like a nightclub.
It's all drag queens.
It's crazy. I couldn't believe. I walked in there and I was like, I thought I got time warped. It was so crazy.
Well, big thanks to CKS for sponsoring the show. We've got some more good stuff coming from those guys. We've got obviously viewer mail or listener mail. We have a really solid topic today: weed and whitewater. And
it's a very special Hammer Factor.
Yeah, very special Hammer Factor. We are recording this at 4:20 Eastern Time. Somewhere.
That's my typical meetup time to paddle. It's 4:20.
Exactly. Anyway, Lewis couldn't make it today. I'm not sure what Lewis had to do, but somehow he just magically had something to do. So,
can you imagine something more important in this show?
Well, we'll get to why Lewis isn't here in a little bit. It's a little bit of a surprise, and it has to do with some listener mail, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. We'll express.
I mean, I walk down the street to get better internet. I'm using Brent Orton's computer. I'm using Matt Anger's headphones.
You didn't shower. I can say that for sure.
I stole LaCroix out of this house that I'm in. No one's here. No one's here.
Whose house are you in, Dave?
He doesn't know.
I believe it's Matt King. I think he's like the head honcho here, but there's several kayakers that live here, but none of them are here now. I'd assume they're on the river, but I guess we'll find out. Maybe they'll drop in on us here in a minute.
Couple good topics here we have for Lewis. Brian Kelleher and Will Jones both wrote in about an article in The Guardian about landowners stringing barbed wire across rivers.
This was a great article. Yeah, I appreciate it for these guys sending it in too. Did you see that independent of these guys, Grace?
What's that?
Did you see this article independent of these two guys sending it in?
I did not. So
it's very timely. Basically, it's an article that talks about in New Mexico how their landowners are like stringing barbed wire and stuff across rivers to keep people from paddling down through them. I mean, it's nuts. And I've seen stuff like that. I mean, maybe not quite as malicious, but inadvertently landowners doing that up, like Drake's Creek just outside of our Confluence has barbed wire strung across it. Anyway.
I've rolled into some barbed wire in Colorado for sure. Outside of Gunnison. I forget which creek I was on, but yeah, that's gnarly. And I've seen, landowners just cutting trees down, into the river, which that's kind of our, that's our worst nightmare out there on the river, right?
Yep. This is not a new issue. It stems from what is navigable, who owns the bottom of the river, who doesn't own the bottom of the river. There's conflicting state laws versus national laws, and it's certainly not a new issue. I know I did a video about this a long time ago, probably 8 or 10 years ago with Nathan Fay in Colorado on the Taylor River. You guys know the Taylor River right there across the hill from Crested Butte. So anyway, I'm super interested to hear Lewis's take on this. I'm sure that he's working on that. That is if we let him back on the show. Dave, all right, we're going to put you on the spot here. These questions were meant to go to Lewis, but being that he's not here,
this is a segment of the show we call 5 questions in 30 seconds.
All right, go.
Yeah, so we're going to get started here. These are 5 questions. These are great listener mail. We want to touch on all of the listener mail, but time is a real deal here with all of these. So
time is money.
All right, get your you got your stopwatch ready, Weld?
Hold on. All right.
All right. And go. This comes from Jeff Hammond. Cam straps or cords?
I use cam straps.
All right.
If you're in the Southeast, you use cords. I don't know why the hell you guys do that, but cam straps seem quicker and easier to me. I don't know.
We need a definitive answer. So it's cam straps?
Yep, cam straps.
All right. It's cam straps, Jeff. Nathan wants to know if he should take a Phoenix kayak. There's a Phoenix kayak that someone has that wants to basically give to him, and he said no, he didn't want it. He asked, will it blow his mind, or will picking the fiberglass splinters out of his thighs be too much to hassle? Should he take the old school Phoenix kayak, or should he scrap it?
Scrap that bitch.
All right. This comes at us from Alex H. in Cali. Is North Korea the next expedition? Look at the map. Mount Kumgang National Park. Before Weld poo-poos this, and if so, who is the Dennis Rodman of kayaking? We will send to bridge the divide. All right. So first question, Dave, is North Korea the next expedition?
Sure. I'd say, yeah. Why the hell not?
And part 2, who is the Dennis Rodman? Who's going to go there and build the bridge of kayaking?
Man, I feel like let's see. I don't know. Annie Ole's really been charging around, getting after it a lot. I mean, he's always a strong candidate to wander hard.
So you're calling Annie Ole the Dennis Rodman of kayaking, just to be clear.
Well, like the Dennis Rodman, I guess that's kind of who the hell would be the Dennis Rodman? In comparison, he's a loose candidate, colored hair, crazy tattoos.
Tick tock. Tick tock.
Yes. Yes, it is. I have to go. I think you're right. I think Hesh may be the Dennis Rodman.
Okay, we're sending Hesh to North Korea. Now to Rhett Flowers. Can a boat be predictable? He says. Hell, that phrase is almost in every review. Here's what I have to say. It's an inanimate object. Given precisely the same circumstances, the same boat will react the same way every time. What gives? So is it dumb to say a boat is predictable, Dave, as someone who sells kayaks? or is that a good way to describe a boat? Rhett wants to know.
I mean,
Legitimate or not legitimate to call a boat predictable?
Yeah, totally legitimate.
But what's that mean? He says it's an inanimate object and they're going to react the same no matter what, so they're all predictable.
Well, I mean, they all have different shapes and sizes and lengths and widths and edges, and they all react differently to oncoming water and features. I feel like you can, yeah, you should be able to predict the way the boat is going to travel. No,
It's you're
All right.
you're in charge.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
I'm
I
just
think
making
it's-
notes here.
yeah.
Predict
I'd say yeah.
predictable's legit. All right. Well, do you have an opinion on any of those?
Well, last question. You missed the last one.
That's it. That's all I got. You're gonna have to read that
is,
one.
is running the tallest waterfall over? And this is probably the most important question. This is by another one from Alex H. Is running the tallest waterfall over?
No,
Okay.
Okay.
no.
There you go.
Good. I'm just making notes here to where to route the hate mail when it comes in.
Yeah, exactly. So
Just send it straight to me. I love checking email.
Good. Okay, let's review where you were wrong, Dave. Let's review the incorrect answers. Cam
What
straps,
do you
you were
mean
correct.
incorrect? Oh yeah.
Just let me do this. Cam straps, you're correct.
absolutely not.
The Phoenix boat, you were incorrect. He should take that boat.
I'll agree with that.
I told you King Hash, so you're right on that. And North Korea is no, you'll get shot. Where you should go is Myanmar, is where you should go. It's North Korea light, right?
Okay.
Okay, next one. Running tallest waterfall is, unfortunately, it's probably not over, so I think you're right there. And road predictability, I have no idea. Boy, that's like a philosophical question for the ages right there. We have
So
to have
my-
a boat designer to answer that one. I don't know. What do you think, Grace?
Some boats, I think he's right in that it is, if you had the exact same circumstances, whatever. But bottom line is, some boats, when you submerge them, you have a good idea how it's going to get back to the surface, and other boats just come out crazy. So I think that's the term.
But like a slalom paddler would have certain expectations out of a boat. Like how it's going to react in a certain situation. And they're predicting it's going to react that way. If their boat doesn't perform like that, then it's not predictable. But that's not a objective review. That's a very subjective thing to say.
Doesn't prediction, to predict the way a kayak's going to move, doesn't that come with a little bit of a time too? Like kind of understanding the boat a little bit, or is that the complete opposite?
No, I think there's a point there. I think that, but you have to admit, Dave, over the time you've been paddling, there's some boats that you're just like, God, no matter how long you paddle, you have no idea what that damn thing's going to do.
Yeah, you fight it. Yeah, for sure.
That's true. I mean, the nut for running like a really high quality Class 5 rapid, right, is it's not just a single drop. It's 8 or 9 moves leading up to some kind of crux, and those moves are usually difficult and involves, going through eddies and doing small micro S turns and doing little micro peel outs and punching through a hole. That's where skiing and kayaking become radically different, because you're moving and the water's moving and you're trying to predict like a really complicated vector through a very complicated field, and you want to be able to predict that sitting on the bank, how that's going to play out. That's where predictability comes into play. Like what degree of certainty could you predict your boat's arc through those currents, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, it comes
I don't know
with
that a
learning
boat brings
of
that
the boat.
unequivocally to the table, unless you dumb down a boat. Like it's just so dumb and slow that it's predictable.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many damn factors. I don't know.
That's
a tough one.
You know what I think about the waterfall thing? I think that we're in an era where the boat manufacturers or somebody there needs to be some kind of hucking hood on the front of your boat, something to duck behind on the big waterfalls to minimize that impact. What do you think about that, Fusilli?
I've talked about this probably like 10 years ago with Jed Selby, I believe. And he talked about the same thing as having like a shield, that you just kind of duck in behind. And
A really important piece of paddling gear for people to invest in, for sure.
I'm just telling you, this is what I think about it. This is the next level.
yeah.
This is similar to the 10 people a year who ask me to make them really complicated backpack straps for their boat so they can carry their boat into Cherry Creek or whatever. I'm like, okay, there's 10 Ians who want this, and none of yuns are going to pay for it. Okay? So, no, I'm not going to make this.
Yeah. Yeah, he will. Comes down to dollar.
Well, all right. we'll move on from that. I think we pretty much answered all of those with 100%.
Well, I got like
Well,
like
it
a
was
C.
we came in at 7.5 minutes for that one. So the fact is faster than we would have done those 5 questions anyway. So
Yeah. I got like a C plus on my answers, Weld, he said.
Yeah,
C, C minus.
Yeah, that's typical.
All right, let's get into the hate mail.
Oh, yeah. Peyton.
First of all, who does
Here we
this come at us from? Sean. I don't have Sean's last name here in front of me, but Sean says, my suggestion is to cut all non-whitewater kayaking, SUP, MTB related politics or topics out. Also, for truly related political topics, try and limit it to one point and a succinct segment that takes much less time on the show. Or even better, just make it a separate podcast for politics so those who want to hear it can subscribe. I realize that it's easy to get lulled into a sense that A, everyone agrees with you on every topic, and B, that your listeners want to hear more politics than we're already bombarded with from tens of thousands of other outlets every day. I mean, talking shit about the NRA, WTF does that have to do with kayaking? So, Sean, thanks for this email. We fired Lewis. Actually, got on Twitter today and sent him packing. So,
Like 5:15 a.m. Grace got up on fired one out. That was it. I knew
Asking
nothing
you
about
shall
it.
receive.
I was shocked. The hammer factor was in a state of chaos all day as a result. I have
well,
a feeling we're actually drifting back into politics here, and Sean's not going to like this.
Yep.
well, Sean, you have a point.
First of all, I agree with Sean. We should not be talking about politics. He's absolutely right. I'm sick of hearing about politics. I'm guessing he doesn't agree with our politics, so that's part of it. But regardless, who wants to hear that?
Yeah, but
They want to talk about paddle offset.
they do want to talk about paddle offset, but also, sometimes you got to eat your veggies. These things affect your paddling, So
There are some
Yeah.
politics and paddling that are really important.
Yeah,
And
that's real.
He's going to have to deal with that. But
Yep.
and
I do. When we start talking about like the really political stuff, I start to cringe a little bit because I'm like, do we really want to do this?
Yeah.
yeah, I hear you there. Beauty of a podcast, you can always fast forward. So maybe I'll just put timestamps in the show notes. So if you don't want to hear any of that, you can get past it. Okay. Sherburne writes back, still doesn't answer where my T-Dub royalty check is. Fusilli, when you did the dim shits shred ready helmet, did you get a royalty check?
Fuck no.
What is up with this? You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, how does this even work? So
I don't know.
anyway,
I mean, yeah, it was. I guess that was just the time. It was like, you're gonna make a helmet, sweet. It's gonna have a Demjits logo on it. That's awesome.
yeah.
Make it.
Well, anyway, I'm still waiting on my royalty check.
You got paid for the Demption shorts we made, if I'm not mistaken.
I did, yeah. Mm-hmm. I did.
What do you
Weld provides.
Yeah.
Thank
Weld
you.
provides.
Anyway, thanks for the email, Tom. I'll actually read the email as soon as we get our royalty check. Ryan Havner chimes in with his thoughts on the Asheville Citizen-Times. This one's sort of directed at you, Weld.
Sort of.
Well, sort of, because the first line is, I need to rant at John Weld for his uninformed digs at the Asheville Citizen-Times. He actually gets a newspaper. He's a fan of the newspaper. He points out some really good perspectives here on Asheville Citizen-Times reporting, bringing in Leland Davis, Juliet Castor from Endless River Adventures. Sums it up with a quote from Nick Williams. This is a good one I want to read. When asked if he believes boating should be restricted on the Chioa, Williams said, hell no. None of the paddling community or Maria's friends or family would even contemplate that paddling that the Chioa should be limited. That freedom shouldn't be limited at all. So, Weld, what say you to Ryan Havner's email?
Well, he ends his article by saying, Mr. Weld's reaction or commentary to a headline does disservice to the reporting and unfairly characterizes Citizen Times as hippie podunk. To remind everybody, I mentioned that the Asheville Citizen Times may have 4 pages dedicated to a bongo drum exchange. And he goes on to say, local journalism is a dying industry, and we are fortunate in Nashville to have a team of folks that share many values of the outdoor enthusiasts who live here. That's my 2 cents. Well, I would say if you go to a party, this is the guy you want to avoid. Because you know what he's going to be talking about? The newspaper. And the dying newspaper. And I point this out because if he was a fan of the Hammer Factory, he would know that what I said had nothing to do with the Asheville Citizen-Times, was in fact making fun of you, John Grace.
Yeah, I know.
And the Citizen-Times was just a proxy for that.
And I also want to
Your
say,
beloved Asheville. That's what I was poking at. John Grace's beloved Asheville.
and I want to let Ryan know the only reason that Lewis poked fun at Citizen Times
No, that was me.
or Weld poked fun at Citizen Times was that he lives in a coal slough in West Virginia where they barely have internet, and it's a way for him to make himself feel bigger while making us feel smaller. So
It's funny you mention that because this is the Dominion Post, our newspaper here in Morgantown, which I get every day, Ryan. And guess who's on the cover this morning?
what?
I'll tell you a funny story about this. Yeah, it's me and my kids.
Whoa.
Oh, listen to this.
We had a snow day yesterday, and I was like, I'm going to go skiing with the kids because the kids were out of school, but I'm going to try and do that thing where it's no one at work knows that I'm leaving. So I just kind of snuck out. Well, I'm loading the skis up, and there's a guy taking pictures. And lo and behold, today I'm on the front page of the paper going to Seven Springs.
That's almost like the time you were on the front page of the paper for buying booze on Sunday.
You remember that guy? Memory. So, okay, Ryan, to sum it up, I'm just going to say this. My problem wasn't with the Asheville bongo section. That was a jab at Grace. What I was mentioning, I think the point of me mentioning that was, or bringing them up, was that, like many people, I mean, I think their first reaction when they see a death in the river is they start questioning whether kayaking is safe or not. You know, and that's an image that as kayakers we have to address all the time. How many times, Fusilli, how many times have you heard someone who's been in the lower Yak, like a family member or a relative or a neighbor, who went on the lower Yak and almost died?
Oh, I mean,
that'd be everybody.
Yeah, so many.
Like, no,
Everyone.
you didn't almost die. And they're like,
You
oh yeah,
fell
I
in the
did.
water.
He was almost dead. They're like,
He was dead.
it's
You were
not
wearing jeans, and you were probably sinking a little bit. And
Well, if you didn't listen to the last episode, whitewater and risk is not a fun topic, but it's a part of all risk sports. It's a part of going outside. It's a part of getting in your car. There's ways to mitigate it, become see if you can get some time with Dave Fusilli and people who have been around and do your best to mitigate it.
time on the water, man. Time on the water is good. Being safe, taking your time, having the proper gear. I'm sure we talked about all this over and over, but shit still happens though, unfortunately.
Are you pro or anti PFDs, Fusilli?
I mean, I'm for the PFD. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I wear
very controversial stance.
Yeah, I wear one almost every single day.
All right,
a lot of times I'll wear a helmet too.
Yeah, I'm with you on the helmet, but talk about the PFD later. All right, on to some good emails. Brian Tooley writes in to defend the low offset. Okay, Brian. Instant loss of cred here, and we'll get into offset.
No. I'm sorry. No. He's defending our stance on low offset paddles.
Is that
He's
what I'm
pro.
reading here?
He's pro big offset.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brian says, I can't agree more about paddle offset. I always felt the
Yes.
offset should match the angle of the shaft while taking a forward stroke. If the offset matches the shaft angle, the control hand can provide power in a neutral position. These low angle offsets force the control hand into a position that puts high stress on the wrist. Probably
Exactly.
old info, you guys. Combine the low offset with close grippers, and it's enough to pull your hair out. Keep up the good work, former North Fork champ. How old of a victory can I still claim, Brian?
So here's a good trivia question for you. What year was Brian Tooley North Fork champion?
You asking me?
Either one of you guys.
96?
No.
I have no idea.
You want the answer?
Yep.
Yeah.
1946. I know that?
46.
Yep. Same year the Cardinals beat the Red Sox in the World Series.
What?
Ain't a slaughter. Yep. Knocked a tater. 8th inning.
I don't even know.
7th game.
I don't even know what you're talking about. All right.
Yeah, I feel like that's too
Mana
old.
around the porch.
I think
Pa
that's
comes
a
out,
little-
says, "You wouldn't believe what I just heard on the wireless. Brian Tooley won the North Fork Championship," is what he said.
Okay, let's move on from
46.
that. People,
Brian, yeah.
people are dropping off right now. Let's keep going. Carrie and Revelstoke.
You guys are having a complete stunned look on your face right now.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
I'm sorry, Dave. I know you're taking time out of your day to do this, and
Oh no, yeah, I'm good. It's cold as hell in here though.
Carrie and Revelstoke wants a small brap. I have a brap and I love it, but I feel like I'm missing out on some of the performance that larger guys get out of it. A brap for the 150-pound and below group is definitely needed, so please call out Shane or Pat about it on the show. Shane, Pat, what's up? Why only one size brap? I've been talking
There's a
about
party
this.
brand, dude.
Yeah, but it's the
No,
same
like a
boat.
small- It's the same size. I'm talking like a brap for like a 140-pound person.
We have a small ripper.
Exactly. Right?
Exactly. So Piranha
What
comes
a great
in.
idea.
Yeah. So are you selling more of the small ripper or the regular ripper, Dave?
Always medium sizes. The medium size always sells better. So
Well,
But how many small rippers do you think you're going to sell in a year?
God, I don't have really a great number on that. I could say that I'll have like on the West Coast, maybe I'll have like 25 of them or so out here, 30, and I'll sell probably double of the medium.
Okay.
But
I don't know. What do you do? I mean, here's Shane, right? Shane, they made a great boat with the brap. I bet the brap sold enough quantities to pay for that tool and then
Yeah.
a bunch more on top of it, right?
sure.
So they turn around and make a Delta V. Now, I understand you want to have a full portfolio of boats in your collection. But on the other hand, I'd have to believe that you would sell a lot more small braps than you would Delta Vs.
I'm just going to hold off. I did talk to Shane about it. Basically, Shane, his opinion was they've been burnt before on making small boats. He hears what everybody's saying, but business-wise, he just doesn't see it as a good idea.
I agree with that. I mean, I think he's probably right there. Like I said, we sell significantly more mediums of any size, of any boat shape, or I should say, than the large or the small. I'd say, go ahead.
Let me ask you this, okay? So we've got Carey, okay? He wants a small brap. Should a company like Liquid Logic be like, okay, we need $40,000 of pre-orders to justify this? Why don't they just throw out a Kickstarter and let the people decide?
I mean, why not? That's what we did with the 12R.
And it's going to be a real thing, right?
It's coming. Yeah. We should see like the first prototype in like August.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Will? Do you ever see launching a product on Kickstarter or a small size for kids or a kids line or something like that as a legit business option?
I don't think we need to do it for paddling gear. I mean, to be fair, we have a lot smaller startup cost on a product than a boat company does. You know, to make a tool is what, $50,000, something like that.
Yeah, it's about that. Yeah.
We have to invest, with minimum orders on fabric and stuff like that. We probably have to order, when we launch a new product, particularly like a dry suit or something, we're maybe $10,000 investment. I mean, it's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But I'm not sure if it's Kickstarter type material. There has been some products like making rain jackets and stuff like that that's definitely outside of our marketplace that I think we'd be really, really good at. That I thought about doing a Kickstarter on those.
Yeah. Well, I understand the business aspect on that, but man, I just wish, it's like every other sport, there's 15 different sizes of each model and ways to really tweak it out for you. And I wish Whitewater had that. I guess that's which
we just need more numbers.
Need more numbers.
We need to teach more moths to roll and catch eddies and just get on the water.
Let's see, moving on here, the Outburst. I kind of want an Outburst now after last show, and we've got
it's like a long brap. I mean, it's a long party brap. That's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah.
That's really long, isn't it? Like 10 feet?
I think it's like 16 feet long.
Sorry, dude. I'm poaching your internet here.
It has I think there's a rudder on that thing, right?
Yeah,
I remember running
skag.
Splat. I could have swore I used to run Splat in an outburst, and right before I'd go off the lip, I'd pull up that rudder, pull up that skag. Like a big lever on the side of that boat.
One
I'm
more
just
thing.
trying to make Dave laugh at this point. I'm not even doing a show anymore.
Dave, did you just get busted squatting? Is that what just went on?
One of the people that lives here he's here, but I think he's gonna let me stay.
Rue says something really interesting. He's like, the older saw blade boats are made of cross-linked plastic, and for whatever reason, they have a lot more rocker. It could be that there were multiple molds made, but I think that they made different cooling molds, which would affect the rocker. I don't know anything about that.
He's pointing out the Outburst came in two versions. There's one with a big saw blade in the back, and one that just had the logo or the words Outburst or something written on it. But he's saying the saw blade ones were better. If you could find one with a saw blade on it, that's like the Buffalo Head nickel.
That sounds better. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely more badass.
Yeah. Saw blades have more rocker if you can find one of those. Speaking of the Outbursts, the Hammer Factor in-house historian Tim Kennedy reviewed the Outburst. It is a great review. He recounts being on Gore at 3,000 CFS 20 years ago and recently taking it out. Where did he take it? To the numbers? Peddling the numbers at 700 CFS. I mean, this is a rave review on the Outburst.
He loved it, huh?
He loves it, man. Basically the only thing he says is put a back bend in it and you're ready to crush. So
No
I can help with that.
Wow. Yeah.
He asked if Scott Shipley had some input in the design of this boat. Scott Shipley was our top slalom paddler for many years and World Cup medalist, I believe. Anyway, I actually wrote Scott this morning in a text, and he responded back. He did not exactly have hands-on design work on that boat, but he was designing his Predator race boat in the same room that Fritz Orr and Steve Scarborough were making the Outburst. So there was some discussion back and forth. I mean, I think if you look at the Outburst, there's no question that when those guys made it, they were looking at Shipley's Predator when they were putting it
How
together.
long is that boat for real? It's got to be under 16 feet.
I think it's 11 feet, isn't it?
Is it 11? That sounds right. Yeah.
I don't know.
I think Wells is like 5 feet off.
I think the Strategic Outburst Reserve crew is going to write back with a very complicated chart explaining colors and boat lengths and temperatures and storage conditions.
Yeah. I don't think we've heard the last of.
We're seeing enormous variations of upward half of a centimeter between model years.
But in the end, the important thing is that there's a goddamn saw blade on the back. That's what you want.
Yeah. I'm looking for one of those right now. Nathan Polly writes in, justifying my rant.
On hating the environment.
I don't hate the environment. That's totally the wrong way to take it. Anyway. Nathan says, I'm officially recommending a, in quotes, may affect, not likely to adversely affect, call for your video concerning the wild and scenic status on the Nolichucky with concern to the Eastern Hellbender. That's official legal jargon for tell that environmentalist to calm their shit. Geltman should back me up. The real danger to the Eastern Hellbender is development, which leads to buildup of silt in the stream and the destruction of their habitat. Wild and scenic status for the Nolichucky would be a net positive and a massive win for the species. I feel vindicated. He says, stay yeasted, I guess, Nathan.
Stay yeasted.
That's really the point of the article, that he closed and saying, stay yeast. It's possible to heat this thing.
All right.
Oh, there he is.
Sorry.
You got yeasted.
Did Lewis just chimed in there totally. I don't know what he's doing. I'm ending it and bringing Lewis. Lewis is coming in, everybody.
He got yeasted.
Well, he got fired by Twitter, but look, you can't stay away.
Grace will actually help. Whoever the last person to talk to Grace will get his favor, as it turns out.
Anyway, that's a great email from Nathan Polly. I got to tell you, I love Nathan's emails and what he brings to the squad here. And anytime you want to back me up, any listener, you'll get top billing here on the Hammer Factor. Oh, one
Well,
thing we
looky
there.
Lucky there. Yeah.
I even got a mic.
Whoa.
See if it works.
You
Does that
better,
work?
better put your headphones in. We got echo out the wazoo.
Echo.
Well, speaking of Lewis,
Is it warm over at your house? I might come over there do this.
Lewis, I'm glad you're here because I need some serious help with this weed discussion coming up here in a minute.
yeah,
Is that working?
Yeah, I can hear you. Speaking of Lewis, T-shirts are here. I sent you guys a picture. I sent one out to you, Lewis. So T-shirts are for sale on the website.
You recording?
Yeah, we're on the air. You just came in mid on the air. Fusilli has basically taken over your part of the show, and I let everybody know about the Twitter firing this morning, and it looks like you're back. So,
Fuck's sakes. This is just like, however it is that we schedule these things, it's like entirely lost on me. It's like, it's like Grace like sends like a carrier pigeon to Weld over in West Virginia, and like I may or may not hear about it. It was like, yeah, we're gonna do it Tuesday or Wednesday.
Hey, Dave knew exact time. Weld knew exact time. I was here. I was ready. I was like 10 minutes early.
I feel like I am getting the Twitter firing. Fuck's sake.
Well, being that Lewis is here, should we just jump into a little everything is fucked?
Yeah.
Dude,
Oh, this sounds fun.
really good things happening right now, man. That's why I'm busy. I'm actually like,
Are you getting? Did you find a girlfriend?
Did you see?
last week I was almost married. I'm still almost married.
You're like, really great news. She's not pressing charges.
I think I'll keep
Jesus
her.
Christ. Guys, your goal just to like make my life with my woman difficult.
How many years have you been almost married?
I don't know, 3 or 4. Appropriate number.
Listeners out there, how long is too long to string a girl along? That's what we want to know. Send us an email. Is 3 years, 5 years, 7 years? What year are you on, Lewis?
I don't keep track of these things. 3 or 4. I'm perfectly happy.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, this could
You
get
guys
me.
just-
This could get me yeasted from my relationship here.
How long you been holding on, Fusilli? How
Like
long-
3.5.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is what
Pressure's
happens
on.
when you're married and have kids, is that your goal in life is just to hassle your buddies who are still just living life happily.
I'm not hassling anybody.
Look at Will. He's so happy. Look at him there. Jesus.
All right, let's clean this show up. Come
Yeah,
on.
all right.
We're all over the map.
All right,
here.
two things, Lewis, before we move on to our weed and Whitewater discussion. There's an article from The Guardian that was in the show notes. Basically,
Man, I thought it was 15 minutes early.
basically, it's barbed wire across the rivers, and we want to hear about the positive things happening in your world. Are you rolling one up, Fusilli?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway.
I think I'm glad I'm dipping out on the weed and Whitewater conversation.
Whoa. We're going.
Not going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
I just came here to talk about the guy who says that Weld only gets his news from Breitbart, and to respond to the dude who wrote in about hating to hear about politics.
Okay.
That's all I'm here for.
All right. Well, let's respond to that one first, Lewis. There was a guy who basically did not want to hear your segment and think that we should keep politics out of Whitewater. What say you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, first of all, I hope most people like it. I feel like I get a lot of nice feedback. That was the first person who wrote in and was like, knock it off. But I think that was probably mostly in regards to our NRA conversation, which is not totally shocking. But, I mean, I guess to me, it's like, like we've all been kayaking for a really long time. And my interest in having like a 2-hour long conversation about like the new Jackson dogma or whatever is like pretty limited at this point. And like, what's interesting to me is, like our community, right? It's like this thing that we're all doing together. And part of that to me is kind of us banding together and, making the change we want to see in the world and representing our community. And, as much as I like to gripe about, all the people moving to White Salmon and everything, it's like, it's kind of cool, it's like we have this town that's like, it's like a 1,500 person town and like 150 of them are class 5 kayakers. And it's like, it's kind of neat, it's like we're building this cool community out here. And I know you guys have that in Nashville and you have that in Pennsylvania. And it's like, we're all kind of in this stuff together. And part of that is, participating in making the changes we want to see. And, I don't know, to me that includes talking about these big picture things that are going on that affect all of us. And that's sort of like a subject of professional and personal interest to me. And I guess at the end of the day, it's like, it's our podcast. We can talk about whatever we want. It's of interest to us, It's like, if you guys aren't sick of it, then that's the audience that matters to me, to be honest.
Well, I'm certainly not here to censor anybody on the Hammer Factor.
If we rub anybody the wrong way with our political conversations, please feel free to send John Grace a note, and he'll send you a refund for that episode straight away.
What about this? Who owns the water? People putting barbed wire across the river. Is that legal?
Dude,
is it cool?
Yeah, sorry. I haven't read it yet.
Okay. Well, let's move on to
We want that one to next week.
Yeah, we can move both of those over. We have 2 actual things we want to discuss, but real quick, tell us your positive news. What are you fired up about right now?
Dude, so remember like a month ago, the government shut down briefly and they were like, okay, we set funding levels and we're going to have a month to iron out, the spending bill for the rest of 2018. And that just came out last night and it just passed the House this morning. And I think it's going to pass the Senate this afternoon. But it includes that wildfire funding fix that we've been working on for like years and years and years and years. This has to do with how the Forest Service pays for firefighting on public lands. And up till now, if they spent more than the money that was available, they had to borrow the money from like all their other program areas. So just about every summer, they're just pulling money and pulling workers who are supposed to be doing things like trail maintenance or forest planning or whatever it might be. And now that this is going to end that problem, the Forest Service is basically going to be able to access disaster funding, like in the same way as if there's a hurricane or something like that. They're able to tap into like disaster relief money if there's like a really big fire season that exceeds the cost of like the 10-year average for fire suppression. They'll be able to tap into this like reserve money, so that's going to end fire borrowing. And this is like the most important thing that can happen for the Forest Service to be able to do all the rest of the things that it does. It's like, I can't overstate what a big deal this is and how long we've been working on it. It's like super, super, super good news. And, like last week we talked about that. We also talked about this idea that they were going to get rid of the applicability of the roadless rule to the Tongass National Forest in Alaska. And that was going to be this precedent that was going to start rolling back roadless protections all over the country, and that didn't get in. So that's super good news. Basically, as far as the public land stuff goes, like everything in here is like pretty good. Like Trump had been proposing these like radical cutbacks to agency budgets. None of that happened. Everything got basically either flat or increased funding. There was a little note in there about Zinke's plans to reorganize the Department of Interior. That all has to get approved by Congress. They were careful to remind him. So that was a little slap on the wrist for our buddy. And I don't know, a couple other things in there. We're like just putting together an email to send out to folks now. But basically, it's like super good news, man. Just really stoked.
What specifically did people miss out on that the National Forest Service didn't have money for? What specifically would affect somebody out biking or kayaking or whatever?
Like literally everything. And it's like especially because so much trail work and stuff gets done during the summer, during fire season. There are people who are literally getting pulled off of like their desk jobs to go fight fires. So like this is just gonna, really help curtail all of that. So it's just, like fire suppression is now more than half of the Forest Service's budget. So it's just been eating away at the Forest Service. 15 years ago, it was like 25%, and now it's more than half. And so, just everything that the Forest Service does to maintain public lands, to like provide recreation infrastructure, all of it is, affected by this.
Is there a reason beyond the obvious why we're seeing so much more money being spent on fire suppression?
It really is, it's climate. It's, it's just that the cost of, doing anything goes up, right? I mean, like inflation and, everything else. And, I think that sort of what you're looking for is like, is the lack of, logging or whatever it is that in some way contributing to the problem of fire? And my sense is that it's not, that it's much more, like the Forest Service hasn't had to really like scale back its ability to do like veg management stuff because of fire money, because that's still such a big priority for them. So I think it's just really, climate, its costs have been rising and agency budgets have been, basically flat.
So this means more money for roads and campgrounds and bridges and things like that.
Yeah, totally.
Killer. Nice
Cool,
work,
that's
Lewis.
good.
Big props,
Yeah,
buddy.
hell yeah.
All right, so
Dude, big team effort.
Fighting the good fight.
now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this show. And Dave, I want to throw this over to you because you were repping for a brand. There was a discussion, an email that was passed around amongst us about how sponsors would feel about being in the same category as cannabis companies. Can you kind of backtrack to that email that we passed around and kind of your repping job that you had going on?
Sure.
I mean, I had the email here too if you want me to read it.
Go ahead. Go ahead and
Whatever.
go ahead and summarize it. I don't think we need to read the whole thing.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Well, I'm sorry to cut you off there, Dave.
No.
That's kind of what he does. It's cool.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I do.
I'm used to it.
Criticized for that numerous times. No, Dave wrote me, and I'm assuming all his other sponsors, an email the other day saying that he's going to be involved with a company that sells what is some kind of
Cannabis.
just weed. It's not.
Just weed.
Right. And so you were asking, and because this company be tagged, in your Instagram and things like that, and
Videos.
videos. I feel like you were kind of addressing this email to me because I talked about this with Max, and I have two kids who are 9 and 12 who idolize Dave Fusilli. They have countless little Dave Fusilli Lego kayaks. You've won many, many Lego kayak championships here.
Yeah.
I should rack those titles up for you. And so, I thought, okay, well, yeah, I mean, it's a legitimate question. And it got me thinking about our sport and its relationship with pot, which is obviously extensive. And I thought, okay, what I did was we were going skiing one day, and I just talked with my oldest kid, my 12-year-old, about this for about an hour to get his opinion on it. But then while I'm doing this, I thought, man, this would be a good topic for the show to really get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, and I wrote that, yes, and again, like you said, I know that you're, it was somewhat directed at you, but I also just wanted to get opinions of all the people that I have been working with, as I said, some of you for almost 10 years. So I put you first, the people that I respect the most, and so I was just looking for reactions and opinions to a concept like that. Basically, the repping is that I've been doing it for like a year now.
What's the name of the company? You're more than free to say it here on the Hammer Factor.
LeafWorks.
LeafWorks, okay.
Works. I got brought on to sell stuff, right? So any other rep job you've done, roll in there with samples and product and show people, describe how it's grown, where it's grown, what other products we have in line with it, price sheet, menu, blah, 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 and try to open doors to these cannabis stores in Washington State. So yeah, that's the repping side of it.
Okay.
So, I mean, what's the problem? I mean, why is this a thing? You know, as I mentioned to my kids, you know, this is legal in Oregon and Washington. I mean, if they're going to grow up kayaking, it's going to be there. I mean, you can't. I mean, or skiing or basically any other outdoor sport. It seems like it's part of the gig. You know, why is this a thing? Why are we? I know there's a lot of parents out there who are in my situation are like, should we shield our kids from this? Is that especially out east where it's not as legal as it seems to be other places out west?
Well, let's break that down a little bit first. So just to back up, Dave sent an email to IR, said, hey, I have this opportunity to do a sponsorship with this brand I was repping. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Dave. And I want to make sure it's all right with you. And then, so let's just start with the kids thing because that is what you brought up first. What's your opinion on it, John?
Mine?
Yeah, let's hear your opinion on it.
I mean, I have no problem with pot. I mean, I don't care. It doesn't bother me one bit. I'd say, you know, it's hard to draw an equivalency, but I don't understand why weed is illegal in many states and alcohol isn't. You know, I think, but raising kids, you just have this kind of feeling like, do I need my kids exposed to more potential problems? Do I really need that? It's not a fair answer. It's not an objective, you know, policy or anything. It's just like you start worrying about it, you know, and then you start to think, well, man, I negotiated, you know, I mean, it's probably not that big of a deal, you know, but yet it's still the issue's there. Otherwise, Dave would be writing these emails, right? So I don't know. I mean, what do you got? I mean, Grace, what do you think?
Did you have the sex talk with your kids?
You know, the older one, yeah. It's not like with the weed thing. It's just not. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I'm happy to discuss this with them. Doesn't matter to me. You know, it's not like I'm gonna sit them down on the bed and I'm like all nervous and like, I need to talk to you about marijuana. You know.
I mean, some people, but I think that there's a lot of people that would feel that way and would have that reaction. You know, and that's I don't know. I guess that's just how cannabis or weed has been portrayed, and you know, it's like devil lettuce. You know, you know, just like all this ridiculous shit that, in my opinion, if you're going to line the two up, alcohol's way worse than marijuana, in my opinion. You know, everyone will have their own, but I guess that's.
And when it comes to the kids, I think there has to be guidelines put in place, just like there are with any rules or things that you have with your kids. And this is just me thinking about what in the future, you know, like definitely there's going to have to be that talk about experiences and whatever. And then you got to talk about why it's legal some places, why it's not legal, what's the medical part of it. I think just educating your kids on it. And then, you know, really you got to just be like, look, if it's illegal here and you're doing it, I got to foot the bill for it, you know, so you're in trouble, you know, like personally, I think that's the way. I think you got to approach it with your kids as like a real topic, just like eating too much ice cream or drinking underage or bullying. You know what I mean? I think it's a topic you have to get past. I don't know. That's just my thoughts on it. As far as
I guess, but I think it's relevant to kayaking because in so many ways, like the kayaking culture and weed culture are, you know, weed culture is part of kayaking for a lot of people, you know, and between like Rasta dry suits or whatever, or green crosses on life jackets, and it's like part of the image, you know, and sometimes, you know, I feel like since IR is not full, you know, jumped in with both feet into that, we're missing customers sometimes. We're not resonating with customers, you know. It doesn't bother me. It's not like I'm concerned about it, but it's a thing for sure, you know. And so, you know, do you want? I mean, I guess it's a complicated. I haven't really thought this out, but it's complicated in the sense that, you know, I want my kids to be involved with kayaking, you know, and we're a kayak gear manufacturer. Do we need, like, how much of part of pot is with kayaking?
I mean, I've been partaking since I was a kid, for quite a long time. But I don't know. I think the key with all that is just everything in moderation. You have to be smart. And like you were saying, Grace, like that's one of the conversations that you do have to have with your kids is like, they're going to do it. Most likely they're going to try it at least,
or they're going to be put in a position, they're going to be around it. You got to kind of prepare them for that,
Yeah. I think I went to a Grateful Dead concert with my dad when I was in like, I don't know, 7th or 8th grade, which is where the first time I saw, someone smoking weed. But I think what's important in the end is that your children, they have to be smart. It's like they're most likely going to do it. But for example, in West Virginia, on most of the East Coast, it's still illegal. So you have to be smart about it. You can't be out in the public. You can't be around people. You have to hide. I've had this conversation with other younger paddlers who have been like in world class, at the traveling high school, with those guys. And one of the kids had been caught and was like around me and like at a festival and near the prawn tent. I'm like, dude, I know you do this. I do this. Don't be a dumbass about it. And I think that that's the best you can do as a parent. I'm not a parent, but that's,
The thing that's weird to me is like, it's so, like in a lot of ways, it's similar to drinking, right? It's like it has its place, but you don't want to go too far with it. But it's a lot different in that like there's so many people who are part of the sport who just smoke weed all the time. And it's like, that's the difference to me is like there's a real difference between kind of dabbling in smoking weed or smoking weed occasionally and people who smoke weed all day, every day.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like I wasn't articulating that point well, but that's kind of what I'm getting at, I think, about weed culture and kayaking or outdoor sports in general,
And you have those personalities. You have those personalities with alcohol as well, and I think a big difference there is if that personality is smoking weed all day and they're drinking all day, you can compare the two. I just feel like the alcohol is going to just fuck you up so much worse.
And I guess I agree. I guess that's the difference though, is I think that it's like when you're around people who are, like if you had a friend who was drinking all day, every day, like that would, everyone in that person's social circle would acknowledge that as a problem.
That's right. And if you're on the way to the river and you're drinking like a vodka martini on the way to the river, and then you're stopping 2 or 3 times down the river to drink a vodka martini, then you get on the car to the takeout and you're drinking another martini, you'd be like, this isn't working,
That's to me, that's the difference is sort of the social acceptance of like a very high level of use that, at the least is not right for everybody and may not be right for more people than we like to let on,
I mean, maybe you can explain this to me because it's not like I have a moral or any other issue with pot whatsoever. To me, it's like if I get high, I'm useless. I'm just a zombie. It just makes me really confused and kind of agitated. And I have received no pleasure in this whatsoever. So I see people smoking pot before they go to the river. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? It's inconceivable to me that you'd want to do this to yourself before you paddle. Just because I know I'd just be ruined.
I have friends and family members that they have like 1 or 2 beers and they're fucking out of control. Like they literally cannot drink. They, get arrested, just make horrible decisions. So I don't know.
Or break it down for me.
I'm going to interrupt you on this one. I'm going to interrupt you on this one, Weld. Real quick before we get into these other points. Dave, what did your other sponsors say? Are you free to divulge that? What was your feedback you were getting, not just from John, but from other people you were sending this out to?
Basically, yeah, go for it. Do it. I didn't have anyone say anything. I didn't have any negative feedback. I had an email from Max, and he just wrote it down to make me think about it a little bit more. And
what's the problem?
Nothing,
if it's legal where you're doing it, what's the problem? Like, what are we all worried about?
Well, it's not legal everywhere, and there's definitely some social barriers there. But let me ask you this, and I'm going to throw this on you, Weld. If this sponsorship works out with Dave, and let's say Dave has the ability now to do bigger trips or pull off some cool stunts or do some kind of interaction to get kids into sports with it, or has some way to build and elevate your brand, do you have a problem with it at that point?
I don't have a problem with it, period. And I ultimately, after a long discussion, I don't think my kid does either. You know, to jump to the end of the story here, but I guess more my question is I don't know, it's just a thing that's out there in the sport that no one ever really talks about. It just sort of, you know.
What about safety?
I had that. I was about to say I had that thought process a lot, like in the conversation of our life jacket conversation a few weeks ago. It was like so much of the conversation was you need to be prepared to help your buddy out when the time comes. You know, I question sometimes what role, you know, like if you're, you know, super scorched, how's that gonna play out for you in any, you know, particularly urgent scenario? And I know that, you know, everybody has kind of a different tolerance or a different, you know, deals with things differently, but I sort of would have liked to have gotten Pat's reaction to that, you know, like when we were having that conversation.
I mean, what do you think?
Do you think there's an equivalent between, you know, drinking, you know,
I mean, if it was between
a couple beers
if it was
before
me,
the river, yeah.
If it was me and my buddy were in trouble and that person could have either barefoot sober Lewis or stoned Lewis wearing shoes, I would definitely prefer barefoot Lewis. But that's just me, you know. You definitely want
barefoot Weld. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
I'd just be sitting there staring at you like an
Barefoot
idiot. Yeah, I'd be like, what is going on? How long have I been standing here?
Are they really in trouble?
What is trouble exactly?
You don't have to worry about that with me. I always wear shoes.
Yeah. Sometimes
Right, so, I mean,
life jacket, yeah.
All right. So you guys who smoke pot before you put on the water, do you feel like you're debilitated or you're operating at less than 100%?
I'm generally smoother, more connected. I feel like just kind of I feel like I'm paddling a little bit better. And I think I do. I feel better. I feel smoother. I just like feel more connected, I would say, for whatever reason. But that's my take on it. And I enjoy it more. It kind of lets me, I mean, kayaking itself is, you know, a stress reliever and a way to step outside the box. And I think that's why most of us enjoy it. You know, it's like it's an adrenaline. It's a focus. And I think that I focus even more with cannabis. And like I'm the type of person that I'll smoke and then I'll go running. I'll smoke or I'll go to the weight room. I'll smoke or I'll go biking. It's a motivator for me, and a focus. It helps me focus whenever I'm physical. If I'm sitting down to write emails, I'm not fucking smoking ever. It slows me down, you know. And I think finding that balance is also, you know, key.
But it seems like at that point you've transitioned from recreational use to self medication of some sort.
Maybe
you know,
so.
I mean, and to me, that's the difference between like alcohol and you kind of talked about this earlier, alcohol and weeds, because, you know, most people that I know a lot of people who have a beer or whatever too every night, you know what I mean? But I hardly know anybody who is at least openly drinking all day. I know a lot of people who smoke pot all day, you know, just from being paddling. And I just kind of feel like, well, they're kind of operating constantly at like 70%, you know? They're just have relegated themselves to that status kind of permanently. And in the discussion with my kid, I was like, that, you know, there's a lot of challenges in life that, you know, you're gonna have to deal with, and you know, when you turn 18, you're gonna have to kind of figure this stuff out on your own to a bigger degree. But I have to be honest, if you were one of those guys who were kayaking and kind of, you know, just high all the time, I'd be a little disappointed. I really would, you know. I would want you to be doing more than that, you know?
Right.
I mean, do you think, am I way off on that? I mean, because I'm not for me, like, pot's just not enjoyable in any way, you know?
I think you're way off on that. Not with everybody, but I think you are with some people. Like, I think what Dave's saying is like, you know, it's not legal here in North Carolina, so only when I'm out in Washington would I know about this, or wherever I'm at. But, you know, right. I agree with that sentiment that when it's time to go recreate, it can enhance the joy out of that. And the whole reason I go kayaking or trail running or mountain biking or anything like that is for the joy. I'm looking to have fun. And if it enhances that experience, then it's great. I certainly don't feel like I'm any any less safe or anything like that. If anything, I'm more cautious,
More aware.
a little bit more aware, and not so just like head down tourist the bull style.
I mean, there's a lot of, there's so many benefits from it too. And that's another thing, that it doesn't even hold a candle to alcohol. It's like, seizures. And, I don't know, I wrote some of this stuff down somewhere, but there's a lot, swelling, joint pain. They think that cannabis that blocks, cancer cells from growing, it attaches to your sensors. I mean, there's so many things that are coming out about cannabis they're like almost miraculous, miraculous things that I don't know. It's
I can see the doctors in our audience like hammering out emails right now as as they're listening to this.
Well, yeah, and I mean, but the doc. I don't know. I could go on and on about this shit. When we go into the doctor end and the medical side of it,
medical profession.
It drives me insane.
Big pharma.
That you've got a plant and
so-called physicians.
Would you let Dave talk? Well,
sorry.
Well, I'm going to mute your mic.
Right.
I have to call him out at some point.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying there for sure. There is that. However, there's also, there are medical benefits to it for sure. You can go to the doctor and get prescribed an opioid, Oxycontin or whatever the hell. And then that can fix you too, I guess, and then you've got people going, they're like, why is there so much heroin? Why is there so much heroin use and death and all this? It's well, we're giving people heroin, at the hospital, and then they get off of it. They run out of their Oxycontins and they go to the street and get the shit, whereas cannabis it doesn't kill people. People don't really get addicted to it. There's never been a death that I know of from cannabis. I don't know. I just think that is crazy. It's like, and in my eyes, it's like the people, the doctors, the government, whoever you want to, they're not trying to help you. They're trying to help them. Yeah. And I don't know. I think people should really open their eyes and watch when you get hurt and you need to take Oxycontin or something. Try to not to fucking do that.
Yeah. But we're talking about Grace seeking out marijuana to go for a trail run or to go boating. Or to go into a lot of people who don't smoke pot, that's going to sound really broken. You know what I mean?
What do you mean broken? I don't know what you mean.
It just seems like, I mean, Gelman. I'm not going to say it. Gelman can say it because I can see the look on his face. I'm going to tell you what Gelman's thinking. Gelman's thinking that why do you need to do anything? Why is it even part of the equation?
Do you like when you're like out with some friends to have a couple beers? Doesn't it enhance your conversation and just like the night and the experience?
Fair enough. Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing. And that brings me back to like another topic on this is the social stigmas. And I think a big thing is that someone like you who isn't into cannabis, well, that makes you feel goofy, or you as well, Lewis, when you're around other people who it doesn't necessarily affect, it's kind of like, and this is something that I don't think is on purpose by anybody who does or doesn't, smoke, but does it kind of give you that feeling you're not one of the cool kids, like you're like an outsider? Like it kind of makes you feel kind of alienated because you're not with that group and it's not something you're into?
Well, since I'm on the hammer factor now, I have a new confidence in these situations that I never had before.
So, I mean, to me, it's like there's a few different streams to the conversation. It's like I think Dave's point a while ago that you have friends who can drink like 2 beers and they're just a disaster is like, I mean, that's totally valid. And I think, all of these things hit people in different ways. Like people have different affinities for it, or it just reacts with them differently. And I think that's totally legitimate. And I think your point about, like if the bar is it better to smoke weed all the time or take opiates? Like, yeah, I mean, that's not hard. That's not a hard bar to clear, like if the alternative to smoking weed all the time is doing a bunch of painkillers, like, yeah, go smoke weed. But, and I think that we're all kind of in agreement too, that, if you're smoking weed in the same way that you're, would have a couple beers at the end of the day, I don't think Welder, I really takes issue with that either. It's like the only, the real gray area, or the thing that is troubling for him and for me, I think, is just the like constant all day weed smoking,
And never drink a beer before I paddled, because even if it didn't affect my performance, I just would subtract from it. Same thing with running or doing anything else. It would just be a negative.
What if it enhanced it? Would you drink the beer then?
That's the thing, because I think what we're talking about is that clearly there are people who smoke pot and it affects them very differently than it does me and a lot of other people. Because if it affected them the same way as it does me, they wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? Or they'd,
Sure.
Unless they delighted in being completely incapacitated or catatonic or something. And so, but I think, so you get, you're driving shuttle where people are smoking pot and they're like, hey, you want some? I'm always like, well, I'm okay right now, because you just want to, there's sort of like, and kayak is always kind of the feeling like it's what you do,
I think that's the big thing with a lot of people and hating on weed, is that it's that social aspect that they feel like an outsider, even though the people who are smoking weed, aren't necessarily meaning to put that on them. That's my thing.
I haven't felt that way in 30 years, but I know people out there. I know that's a source of tension for people for sure.
I have the only reason I say that is because I have a friend who's like that, and it's like, it's that social stigma more than any kind of stance against it.
I will say it's not going to take much to connect the dots here, but I have a friend in this industry who has different thoughts on this than I do. And we've often discussed how, you could subtly brand this into your products and you're definitely more part of an in crowd. You know what I mean? Or it feels that way, and if you're not jumping in it completely, you're not in that in crowd. And that is a thing, there's certain dog whistles you can put on a product to let you know that you're one of the crew, So that's more of an interesting. That doesn't bother me one way or the other, but it's just sort of an interesting aspect of branding your product in paddle sports, or biking or skiing for that matter. Do you embrace pot as like part of your branding effort?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, I don't think you have to. People love my teal dry suit, though, man. I'll tell you that, Weld.
That's right.
It's green. It's fucking green.
Dave, you touched on this, and so you kind of have the opinion that cannabis can be, in a way, a performance enhancer for you.
Yeah, I do think it. I think it is. I just think it relaxes me and makes me focus. I've actually had people, when I was doing the repping for LeafWorks, I've had people. Some of the vapor carts that we sell, I had a guy he's an ultra marathon runner. He runs all the time, and he really liked the cartridges that we had because he said it opened up his lungs better. It's like a bronchial dilator, he claims.
Uh-oh. I can hear the doctors writing the letters again.
I don't know about that, but he swears by it. I've heard this over and over again. It's not the first time I've heard that from people. So yeah, I think it does. I think it does enhance, and I think I don't know. And I when you have a couple beers at night, a lot of people. Why do we drink? Why do we smoke? I mean, a lot of times it's to relax.
We have holes in our hearts that we can't fill.
That's because we've been staring at the computer all day. That's why. It's like it's an out. It's a way to burn up energy. I think, especially when humans, we're like continuing to sit down more and more, and I think we are made to move. You know what I mean? And people are sitting at desks and in offices and cubicles for so much of their lives, and they get out of that house and they just want to go fucking crazy and have a couple drinks and maybe smoke some pot or whatever the hell it is. I don't know what the hell my point is, but I think in the end,
see what I'm talking about?
Smoking some cannabis is a better move, I think, for most people.
All right, David. I know the answer to this for you, but John Grace, have you ever smoked pot with your parents, your dad, your mom?
Negative.
What would happen if you were to take that up with your dad, who was a cop, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's just a layer of respect there. That if that's you don't want to force someone you love to be a hypocrite. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to. Mm-hmm. It's just something that's just but at the same time, it's my, back.
Does he know that you smoke? Does he know that you smoke pot?
Oh, you mean back in the day, a long time ago when I used
No,
to?
now. Yeah. No, I mean in real life.
Yeah, yeah, I believe so.
You believe so, but you would never discuss it with him.
It's not, it's definitely not something. It's been discussed actually a few times, and it's kind of.
It's a different time though. Your parents, my parents, or their grandparents were fed a whole different image, man. Than your kids are being fed right now, like entirely different.
Yeah, that's a tough question though, because my dad, he's fully anti the war on drugs, thinks it's a total waste of resources. He has a different kind of perspective on it, so I don't.
How about you, Geltman?
Have I ever smoked pot with my parents?
Yeah.
No.
No. Now, Grace, would you smoke weed with your kids?
No.
When they got turned 18 or 20?
No. Well, maybe when they're fully on their own, they're fully on their own. I can see doing that. But there's just certain things.
When they ask you if you smoke pot, what do you say? Like they're 12.
Well, I'll say that I have.
Oh, come on! You're not going to be forthright about that.
No, there's certainly. Are you going to tell your kids everything that you've done?
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
In that regard, absolutely. What am I going to lie about? When I talk about the 12-year-old, he was like, "Did you smoke pot?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have, of course." What am I going to tell you?
Well, I'll certainly.
It's just not my thing.
I'll certainly
care for it.
let it be known that there's barriers and there's ways to do things that you're going to. Basically, I'm going to go back to anything in moderation is okay. If you sit around all day and just operate at 70%, that's not a good option for you. If you can't figure that out, then that's for you to figure out.
So you're saying, wait, you said operate at 70%.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you sit around all day smoking weed, you're not going to be at 100%.
But you're okay being 70% when you go for your trail run or you go kayaking.
There's times and places though. Like if I'm racing the North Fork Championship, for example, I am not fucking high.
Exactly.
No way.
Exactly.
No way. If I'm doing my local river and that I do almost every single day, there's a good chance.
Then it's okay to be marginalized in those situations.
100% yes. Because you're going to be marginalized if you don't get sleep. You're going to be marginalized if you got crappy gear. You're going to be marginalized if you got a cold. There's all kinds of ways that you're going to be marginalized. You're trying to put a black and white line on this, John, and it's just not like that.
No, I'm just listening to what you're saying. I'm spitting it back to you to see how it sounds when you say it.
Yeah. So when you're hanging out with your bros and you sit down and have a beer, are you like, man, these guys are so boring. I have to have a beer to hang out with them?
It's Pinot Grigio, first of all.
Yeah.
Second of all.
I'll tell you this as far as performance and whatnot. I did a 100-mile trail race, and we got to mile 60, 70 or something like that, and I'd roll into the aid stations, and people would be trying to choke down a pretzel, and whatever. And dude, I rolled in there full on munchies, man. I was like, give me 3 of those, give me 4 of those, and whatever. And so, I don't know about the whole not being an enhancer and operating at 70%. But dude, you don't want to sit and eat ice cream all day. You don't want to drink all day. You don't want to smoke weed all day. You don't want to run on a treadmill all day. You don't want to do, it doesn't matter. And to objectify weed as this one thing that causes you to, that's just the way so many things are that you come across.
I got a good way of explaining this. I think when it enhances what I'm doing, if I'm running the Little White, let's say, and I know it really well, and I'm stoked, then I'm more stoked. If I'm about to do the North Fork Championships and sliding off that ramp, I'm already fucking scared. So it's going to enhance that a little bit for me. I'm going to be a little bit more scared, I think.
Yeah, you're not.
I don't know.
Do you have a Little White water level cutoff for smoking weed?
That's a good question.
Probably. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I should come up with one. 4.20. No, I could go higher than that. No, I don't know, but I think that's kind of what it is for me anyway. That makes sense.
So where do we stand on safety brakes? Because that is something where your habit, or whatever you want to call it, your predilection, which I could care less about, starts to impede on my day.
Yeah.
Are we saying no to those? Is that a no-no?
Well, are we talking about real safety brakes, or are we talking about
work it out of their boat?
How long's the run? Do I do it every day? Is it sunny?
Yeah.
Is there a nice beach? Do I have a lunch?
Dave's asking the right questions.
Yeah,
All
exactly.
right, Gelman, what do you think? I need some real help here, Gelman. Throw me
I
a
mean,
rope.
if you want to stop and you have more than like 2 spongefuls worth of business to deal with on the little way, like I don't want to go kayaking with you.
Yeah, I'm with
Thank you.
I'm with Lewis.
But yeah, I'm with Dave. If it's like a
Yeah.
nice sunny day and you're out hanging out, like
And you're doing like the whole white salmon or something like that, not just a short run section, then yeah, just stop, stretch your legs.
These are some amazing generalizations, Weld, that you're throwing on. I mean, like,
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, just saying that basically you're saying, oh God, these pot smokers, they just sit around on the bank and like take safety breaks all day.
Well, I think those are things that Welds run into, right?
Those are things I've run into, sure. I mean, he's not like everybody. To be clear, I'm playing devil's advocate here on a lot of these issues to spark a conversation. You know what I mean? It's nowhere near as polarizing as I'm making it out to be, but I do think it's an interesting subject for sure. It's something that was definitely brought to light as I talked about this with my kid, and what my kid was going to be facing as he starts paddling more, and the fact that Dave had to write an email to address this. I mean, why? I mean, really, the bottom line is, why bother writing an email about something that he's doing that's completely within the law with the place that he lives? What difference does it make?
Because because immersion research is countrywide and Piranha's worldwide, and it's not legal where you're at, and it's
like a very different. It's a very different culture, like East Coast to West Coast too.
It is.
It's like here,
really,
it's like, like if you go to the bar in DC, there are not like half a dozen people smoking a spliff like in front of the bar, and here it's like like nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's just like it's the same as drinking.
Yeah, so that's why. I mean, that would be why I would want to bring it up, and you do have kids, and I would not want to disrespect I try to be as open as possible. I think that's a good quality for everyone to have. So
no, I definitely took that lead, and that's why I brought up, rather than try and repackage this into that discussion where I'm sitting in my kid's bed, awkwardly discussing this. I just told him about the email, and I spilled my guts about it.
Well, I think that what I've got out of this discussion is that people who don't smoke weed have a generalization about people who do smoke weed. And there's like a judging there.
No, I don't think that's true.
That's what I'm. Are you getting this, Fusilli?
I mean, it seems. Kind of, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And some of the smartest, brightest scientists, people who have done incredible things, have smoked cannabis. So I think it's unfair to kind of generalize people who paddle as being like slow or less safe or something like that. I don't think it's a valid argument at all.
No, I think it's
we're
like
just teasing out the
cilantro.
conversation.
Thank you. That's exactly right. I think it's a lot like cilantro, where there's people out there who can't stand cilantro and they wonder why people could eat it, and and I feel the same way. I mean, to me, I'm like, clearly it's a different experience for other people. There's no question about that.
All right. So as a brand IR, so you're okay with Dave throwing a LeafWorks logo up there with you?
Absolutely.
Okay. What about Jägermeister?
Yeah, well, that was the thing. Then Karen and I talked about.
Hang on. Yes or
further.
no? Yeah or nay?
And I was like, I mean, what if Dave was representing, what's the New Belgium? Or who would just build a brewery down there in Brevard?
Yeah,
Sierra Nevada or Dales or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, is it fair to criticize him for LeafWorks? And would he even be writing an email if he was being sponsored by, New Belgium?
What about?
No, he wouldn't.
What about?
He wouldn't at all.
What about Pornhub?
That's a good one.
So
I would say no. I would say no. In fact, I don't know. We're getting into an area where Sean is not going to like, because we're deviating from kayaking here quite a bit. And I'm sorry, Sean. But
sorry, Sean.
I did point out
Smoke
that
some weed.
that my kids are gonna have to deal with stuff they never had to deal with. One, the fact that pot's like 1,000 times stronger than anything I'd ever seen when I was growing up. That's A. B, it's legal in many places in this country, which was never the case with me. And so answering these questions were pretty black and white. You just don't do it because it's illegal, and no one needs the headache. Certainly not me when you're 16 and getting caught with it. And then I was like, the other thing I have to deal with that I've never didn't have to deal with as a kid is internet porn. Of which is tons of it, and it's a fire hose of the stuff coming at you, and basically,
and it's legal.
It represents the internet hates women. I mean, that's, if you looked as objectively, that would be your conclusion from this. It's the most misogynistic, gross thing you could imagine for the most part.
Yeah.
And no, I wouldn't. No, in that case, I would not, because I do think that's a repulsive, predatory industry. And that's where I'll draw the line.
Whenever I was approached to do some repping work, I thought about it a lot, quite a bit about whether I wanted to get involved with it and selling it and all this other shit. And then when I thought about what I was selling and what people are selling and what products sell well and everything, I started thinking about it. I was like, I'd much rather sell this than even Coca-Cola, or Red Bull or Gatorade or all this bullshit that's supposed to be good for you and people are told is good for you. Like, I would much rather sell something that I think is actually can be used in the right circumstances with the right people, beneficial. And that's what I landed on.
What about the NRA? What if one of your athletes was sponsored by the NRA?
All right. What's the final word here? Are we ready to move on from this? Do we solve this issue once and for all? Can we as kayakers now unite under a mutual respect for this, or is there more left to be said?
It depends on
let the listeners decide.
It depends on if Leafwork inks a deal with the Hammer Factor, and if we can get some sort of sponsorship package here, that'll dictate my opinion. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to. The biggest thing with me is that I know that sometimes, or I've been in situations back when I used to smoke weed, that it made people uncomfortable around me. I didn't like that.
I'll tell you a story. I have a friend of mine who paddled with you and Daniel and a couple other people years ago. And you guys, there was tons of water. You guys were driving around to various rivers trying to find stuff that would run. And you were smoking pot the entire time. And he was starting to freak out because he was like, how on earth are these guys going to get down the tox away in this state? And it was definitely a hand-wringing situation for him. Do you know who I'm talking about by any chance?
I don't. I don't.
Of course you don't.
Did we make it?
But it happened.
Did we make it down the river okay?
Yeah, it was a bit of a well. Actually, I shouldn't say. I'm not sure what happened, but I remember him telling me that story and laughing about it.
I'm not sure exactly. I think the only thing for me personally is I just don't want to be offensive to people, and I think some people like Lewis and John find that offensive. So I just got to be careful around that.
Yeah. Well, I think
Hence your email.
I think everyone should be, and I think you should be respectful when you're driving to the put in, and no one wants to smoke. Maybe wait till you get to the top. Roll the window the whole way down. It's smoke generally. So.
We'll have to Dave. We'll have to get together and
you pot smokers have decided that you're going to self-medicate yourself into a stupor, and you're ruining your lives and probably our sport.
Yeah, devil let us keep that.
Well, we are
way
over time. It is time to get to everyone's favorite segment of the show, Rants and Raves. But before I get into Rants and Raves, I got to give a shout out to our Rants and Raves sponsor, Kaleva. Kaleva's Liquid Adventures is taking the best of the East Coast and bringing it to the West Coast. We are partnering up with ENRG Kayaking School to bring you the semi-stout tour through Oregon in May 12th through 9th. This is the semi-stout tour through Oregon, May 12th through 9th. This week will be full of quality whitewater instruction, camping, and hot springs. Our tour will include rivers like the Santiam, Sandy, Brighton-Bush, I've never heard of that one, and others. If you're not quite ready to run the Little White with 15 of your closest beater friends, then this may be the trip for you. Find out more at kaleva.org. Big thanks to Kaleva. Those guys are killer. So, what is the Brighton-Bush, guys? Am I saying that right?
You've done it? Yeah, Brighton-Bush.
I've never heard of it. Where's it at?
It's kind of like east of Salem, kind of near Opal Creek, I think.
Yeah.
I know there's some like really badass hot springs down there, and I think it's kind of like easy class 4 creeking. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, class 3, 4, beautiful. I need to go down there and actually take my sup.
Well, you can find out more about that at kaleva.org. All right, now on to Rants and Raves. I'll lead us off here. I'm going to rave. I'm going to rave about states like Oregon and Washington and California and these states that have taken a progressive step to legalize cannabis and all of its benefits ranging from seizures to everything in between.
Tax revenue.
And supporting my friend Dave. So
Thank you.
I'm raving about that. I'll go ahead and take it one step further. I'm raving about LeafWorks for sponsoring my friend Dave. So that's.
I mean, I think West Virginia should legalize it because Lord knows we need some tax revenue in this state. There's no question about it. What do you think? Where do you stand on that, Geltman?
Oh, it should definitely be legal. I mean, regardless of how you feel about weed, it's like the harm of the war on drugs vastly exceeds anything that you could ever ascribe to weed. And I gotta think too that for some place like West Virginia where like opioids are a big problem, it's like there are always people who are gonna want to just like turn themselves into a vegetable on the couch. And it's like if the choices are taking a bunch of pain pills or just getting high as a bat, like smoke weed. Like don't take fucking pain pills. You know? Like,
yeah, that's my rant too.
So let's hear your rant, Dave.
My rant is the like pretty much on par with Lewis. There is if you cannot understand that there is a heroin problem in the country and it stems from the pills that you are given, you need to wake the fuck up and look around.
Geltman, what do you got?
I got nothing, man.
You just found out about this show about 45 minutes ago.
Wow.
I thought I was calling in like 15 minutes early, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna get on super early. I'm gonna like bang out the beginning of the conversation and then dip out.
Well, blame Grace for this.
Yeah, I'm gonna rant about John Grace's scheduling.
Solid.
I'm glad I can take this monkey on my back. Well,
all right, can I rave? Yeah, I got to rave.
All right, let's hear it. Shut us down.
It's a book. It's called Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72 by Hunter S. Thompson. It's important for three reasons. One, great read if you want some perspective on our current political times, Sean. And I'm going to read you the first paragraph, the first like opening, these little opening paragraphs, the beginning of it. This was written in 72 by Hunter S. Thompson. It goes, it is Nixon himself who represents that dark, venal, and incurably violent side of the American character almost every other country in the world has learned to fear and despise. And it goes on like that. Second thing, and this is a shout out to Ben Bradley Jr. over there in Asheville, Ryan Havner. Hunter S. Thompson was far from a classic journalist. However, the book is filled with great tales of journalism in its heyday in the 70s with New York Times and Washington Post writers. And I firmly believe that if we cannot figure out how to keep a paid press alive, our country will be in ruins. We have to figure out how to pay for news. It can't be free. And the third thing is, to tie this all together, is that I think if you want a little perspective on Daniel Delaverne, reading some Hunter S. Thompson, especially a very scholarly work like the Campaign Trail book that Hunter put together, would give you a real insight into Daniel.
Well, there you go.
I'm not saying Daniel was exactly like Hunter S. Thompson, but they're cut from the same cloth. I've always felt that way.
What was the name of this book?
Fear and Loathing of the Campaign Trail 72 by Hunter S. Thompson. If you read his opening paragraph of the introduction where he talks about putting this book together at the last moment with some poodle running around the room going completely crazy because there's seals barking in the background, tearing things up, and there's he's been up for 52 hours straight trying to write this thing, you'll be hooked for the rest of the book.
Killer.
Man, I've never read that. I've read like so much Hunter S. Thompson. I used to love him when I was younger. I haven't read anything in a while. I never read
the Campaign Trail book. If you read it, you'll be like, things never change. I
always really liked Proud Highway. You read that?
No.
Yeah, like his collection of letters.
Huh? No, I never read that.
Recommend it.
Huh? Thought I read everything by him.
Very cool.
Need to read more.
Well, Dave, thanks for coming on. Thanks for being open and honest about what you got going on up there with LeafWorks.
Yeah, thanks for talking about it. I try to be honest and open book. My mom told me never to lie. Try not to. So.
And Lewis, thanks for making it happen in between all the other magic that you make happen all day, every day. So big thanks for that.
You're back. You're not fired anymore. That's I think.
Yep. We had a Twitter firing.
I'm always afraid I'm permanently about to lose my seat on the Hammer Factor news desk here.
I can't wait to see what happens with this weed discussion in terms of listener mail.
It's gonna be interesting, huh?
And that's it for episode 46. Thanks for listening to the Hammer Factor.